Welcome back to World War II TV and Saturday shows, which are quite rare. Holocaust denial is on the rise. Certainly, that's the impression I often get from social media. What are the myths spread by the deniers? To help explain the nonsense of their claims is regular World War II TV guest Alina Nowobilska. So I'm going to bring her in now. Good evening, Alina. How are you today?
Hi. For the first time, I'm really excited and happy and raring to go where I can be funny and annoying and sarcastic and rude when I'm talking about such a serious subject. So I'm really looking forward to this.
So let's start away. You've got 20 minutes to make your case and talk about where some of these myths come from. I'll try and match up the photos of what you're talking, and then I'll jump in at the end and we'll have a few comments. So basically, take us through the myths, Alina.
Oh, my days. Do you know what? So just for everybody, Woody told me to ask me to do this, and I thought, oh my God, what can I do? The list for me is so extensively long that I thought I would hit some of the more major ones before hitting anything smaller. If we have time, we'll go for some of the smaller ones. I've got a fantastic meme for you guys at the end as well. So we're going to look at three main forms of denial. So did gas chambers really exist? The capacity of the crematoria and the camps. Did it really burn as many bodies as they claim to? And the enormous scale of the crime were really over 1 million people murdered in Auschwitz. We're not talking about the Holocaust. It's a whole other different kettle of fish. But within itself, can people in Auschwitz have murdered like over 1 million people? Is it possible? So I yesterday decided to go back on myself and watch David Cole. That's David Cole, people. Go and have a look at him. He's got his interesting program. It's absolute shit about Auschwitz and all these claims that historians make, and it's hilariously funny, frustrating. I got really angry. I was, funny enough, boarding a plane and nearly threw my phone at the other end of the plane. David Cole is a total asshole who has no idea what he's talking about, and we're going to talk about some of the stuff that he says and how we can kind of combat this, right? So the thing is, the numbers have changed, right? Let's be honest. The numbers of murdered people have changed, right? We're going back to 1945, right? How many documents and information was truly available in 1945 compared to, let's say, today, where we have a wealth of information? We have documents from Hungary, we have documents from France, we have documents from everywhere. Yet when they were doing the war crimes trials, they were quite limited to what they had. They also had information coming from the resistance, information coming from civilian populations, from prisoners themselves. So the information they had then is not quite the information we have now. So I want you to remember this. In 1945, I've got to read this out because I forget the name all the time. So the Soviet State Commission for the Investigation of Crimes by the German Fascist Aggressors, bit of a mouthful, they arrive in Auschwitz in February 1945, and they investigate the crimes that had happened there. They look around, they examine all the objects that have been left behind, the gas chambers that have been dismantled and completely and utterly destroyed, and they come to the number of about 5.1 million people die, right? So that's the first statistic we get. Then along comes the Polish War Crimes Committee, which do the same. They do their own investigation, and they come to a conclusion of about 4 million people. So we have a bit of a million difference. Remember, again, we don't have all the facts at this stage. We're doing estimations. Then Huss, when he is interrogated, he comes up with some ridiculous numbers which don't match at all. But then when he's extracted back to Poland, he comes out with a very interesting number, which is 1.13 million, which is close to the number that we have today. And he actually retracts his statement. He says to the Polish people, it's like, right, this is roughly how many people were deported. And they were, the statistics are really close. We don't have time for statistics, but yeah. So what do we find out? We find all the transport lists: France, Belgium, Holland, Hungary, Slovakia, Italy, Bohemia, Moravia, Norway. The one problem we have is that we don't know the amount of Polish Jews that were deported to Auschwitz. There are no transport lists. Those are the lists that have to be estimated. But with the other transport lists, we have complete lists of who was there, who arrived, how many people we've got. So what the historians do, you know what historians do, we do loads of things, do lots of estimations at this point. So that's the only last estimation that we need. And Franciszek Piper, who a lot of people, especially David Cole, decides to slam, but he's a jackass, remember, ignore him. Franciszek Piper, fantastic historian, now retired from Auschwitz, and he estimated that it was about 2,000 people per 119 transports, which ends up about 300,000. So all in total, we've got 1.1 million. But this statistic was being used all through the time of communism up until about the 90s when this was finally decided. So statistics change. You can't just say, you know, this evidence is from here, and then 10 years later we find new evidence that contradicts that evidence, and historians are constantly finding something new. So all the Holocaust and I go, oh yeah, well, you know, you started with 5 million, went to 4 million, someone wrote 8 million, and then some other random statistics come out, and they're like, that's it. You know, you don't even know. But we do know. We have an idea of those from the West, but we don't have an idea of those from Poland. Those transport lists didn't exist. So we can have an estimation. My God, how much is history made up of estimation? How many of you were in ancient Greece? You know, how many of us actually witnessed what happened in ancient? Do you know what I mean? It's not something that we can sit there. Anyway, I'm going to rant. I'm stopping ranting because I know Woody's going to yell at me for the ranting. So that is the one thing, is the enormous scale of the crime. The statistics change. That's my bottom line. Don't be fooled into all of this bullshit of, you know, we don't know what we're talking about. We know what we're talking about. We've got the goddamn transport lists. Let's move on to a slightly more interesting one for me, is that the gas chambers never existed. So apparently, according to Holocaust deniers, gas chambers never existed. So what happened to about 1 million Jews who end up in Auschwitz and die? They kind of evaporate, disappear. I mean, if we want to believe in Harry Potter, we could wave our magic wand and say that's, you know, Voldemort came along and you know, exploded all the Jews that basically were there. Obviously, we all know that's bullshit. That's crap. The gas chambers did exist, and I find this hilariously funny. Again, I'm going to bring up David Cole because I just sat and watched him last night, and anyway, got very annoyed. He brings up the Leuchter report. For those who don't know how to spell that, that's Leuchter. It was done in 1988. So by that stage, we're about 40, 50 years after the Holocaust, give or take. My mathematics is awful, but 40, long enough. Yeah, about 40. Yeah. This Fred he's not even a scientist, number one. Right, here's some dude that does humanities that's gone, oh, I've been hired to help with a Holocaust defamation suit, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to Auschwitz, and I'm going to do my own studies, and I'm going to prove to you that none of this exists. Completely pseudoscience. He goes to Auschwitz, not even authorized by anyone, wanders into the camp. You've got to remember, then and now in the 80s is very different to now. Now there's security cameras and everybody can watch you and see it, and you can't do any destruction. But then he just wandered down to the crematorias, walked in, took 31 fist sample sizes from various points, and then he also went to the delousing blocks and took samples from those too. Now, first of all, the people who were taking these, who were, I've forgotten what the word is in English. They were working out and testing. That's the word I was looking for. They were testing these samples, and they didn't know what they were testing for. So first of all, the testing is completely and utterly shite. Okay, forget it. The testing's wrong. They're grinding this stuff down, right? When you're grinding it down, you're changing the composition. You should be running analysis against the wall. Take scrapings off the wall. Don't take the whole freaking block and and mix it up, and that's how we have our, you know, sort of answers right there. He doesn't seem to realize when he states that there's practically no amounts available of Zyklon B in the walls. Now, I'm going to explain to you why there most likely will not be, even now. So when he took those samples, 40 years, you all saw, did we have the photo up of the destroyed crematorium? There we go. Now have a look at this. Now, those of you who don't know, Poland, maybe not now, but many years ago, the weather, God, I could go down to -30, snow, rain, cold, hot, summer. These walls are being affected by the weather. So first of all, that's completely and utterly screwed it, right? If testing should have been done, it should have been done within the first few years of this being completely and utterly destroyed. Now, worthless, completely and utterly worthless. It's pointless. Second of all, when the gassing process happened, people were put into the gas. Now, this depended on the weather, which is why we say between 20 and 30 minutes. In the summer, 20. In the winter, 30. It took longer for the gas to evaporate in the winter than it did in the summer. And those people were kept in the gas chamber for about that long. Then the extractors went in, removed the gas. So the gas isn't even in there long enough to sit against the wall. Now, if we're talking about the delousing, if you could switch back to the other picture that we were on before, keep going, the one with the blue walls.
Yep.
There we go. The interesting thing is, this is not Auschwitz. And I've got this photo up because this is my Danek, actually. Zyklon B turns the walls blue. So when you walk around these places and you see barracks that are soaked in blue, you know they were delousing blocks. In the delousing blocks, 24 hours at least, you've got Zyklon B sitting there. So it's sinking into the walls and turning the walls blue. Gas chamber walls are not blue. They've been in there for 20 to 30 minutes. Then he decides, David Colin's stupid documentary, decides to go to Flagship People and say, oh my God, you know, I've caught you out now. I've caught you out because you say that the gas chambers, oh God, what was the line he wrote? No, I completely forgot what the line was. But basically he says that the amount of transports that were coming in, the walls should be stained blue. And he seems to imagine, like most people do when we talked about Auschwitz, is that there was one transport after another. And I mean, it was a death factory. I'm not saying it wasn't. But it wasn't like there was one transport, a couple of hours later, there was another. Every day, every single day, this process happened. It's not what it looked like. When you had the big transports, for example, the Hungarian Jews who came in May 1944. Yes, that's what happened when the Jews came from Łódź, for example. When they came from, and I've completely blown out of my mind what the other place was, but there were certain transports that were just enormous. These people, yes, they went through the gassing process continuously. But there were days where 3, 4, 5 days, the gas chambers didn't operate. So are you kind of getting on board with this with me? Is this making sense to you? Because I'm sitting there thinking, going, how does he think that this operated back then? Like 1, 2, 3, 4 concerts. If we had that many, the death toll would be much higher, for God's sakes. I mean, work out the mean average to the death toll to, for example, how many transports and how many gassing processes there were. And also we've got to remember, in that death toll, not just people that were gassed, people died of starvation, executions. They were beaten to death. They were terrorized. They died of disease. So most of them, yes, most of them were gassed, but there was also a lot of other factors involved in that. So we can't just say all of these people died and all of these people were gassed, which is, again, how some people see the Holocaust, apparently. When somebody asks, how is it possible 6 million people were gassed? And my head goes in my hands, and then I have to sit there and completely explain everything from top to bottom. Hold on, I've lost myself. I'm starting to rant. I'm trying not.
We were expecting that. Ranting was completely expected. I mean, this is the myth we are challenging this week, that it is the one that brings out the most anger in me and brings out the most anger in you. And, you know, that anybody could even consider denying this stuff. It just makes me so angry and despair at people's intelligence and et cetera. So, yeah.
Well, I am going to throw some statistics at you, actually. So we have 4 crematoria 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. One, which is in the main camp, would be able to burn 340 people a day. That's that one. Then crematoria 2 and 3, which is that's 2 or 3, I can't remember which one that one is. They both could do 1,440 people a day. My maths is off. That's 2,880 or something like that. Then crematoria 4 and 5, which is smaller, are 768. So in total, every day they could burn 4,056 people. Now, the problem with this statistic is, this is what was predicted that could be done. Doesn't necessarily mean it was. Sometimes the Sonderkommando would end up burning 2, 3, 4 corpses in one. You've got to remember, some of these people that are arriving, they're not looking like you and me. Any of us who are sitting behind our computer, sitting behind our phone, having a cup of tea and having something to eat. These people are starving. They're skin and bones. They're dead. Practically, they're walking dead. So you could quite easily fit 2 or 3 people in there. Also, children would be doubled up with adults. So you can't really judge that exactly 4,756 people are being burned in one day. Because on top of that, outside of Crematorium 5, which I didn't put up actually, there is an aerial footage photograph where you can see smoke plume coming off of the burning pits. That's where they would also basically dig out a pit and burn people. They did that with Bunker 1 and Bunker 2, which is the little white house and little red house that people talk about, just in case somebody knows them by one name and not the other. And that's how they would burn them outside, because they didn't have a capacity to burn them in a crematorium at all. And if you go back to my episode with you, Woody, then I explain a lot more in that one about the burning process and everything else. We don't have time for that. The other question to this is, well, why Bunker 1 and 2? We don't even know where they were. Did they even exist? Is this a myth? Well, yeah, we've got the foundation of Bunker 2, which is under the White House. Oh, but how do we know that was used for the gassing process? There's no bricks and stuff there. Well, no shit, Sherlock. I'm sorry, but if you're committing mass murder, okay, or I don't know, any criminal out there, just God forbid nobody's listening to this and thinking that I'm giving them any ideas, but you're going to clean up your bloody crime scene, are you not? Is that not the logical thing to do?
I always do.
But you know what I mean. You I don't know, you murder someone in your hallway, you're going to think, oh shit, I've got to clean up the blood, I've got to clean up everything. The Germans are doing exactly the same thing. They had to destroy every piece of evidence. Oh, why are there no crematoria ovens in the crematorias that have been blown up? Well, what would you do? Would you leave, I think it was 500,000, God, I can't remember the statistic of Reichsmarks. It was a huge, 5,000 something Reichsmarks cost to get these ovens, right? That's a lot of money. Are you just going to abandon these ovens so that when the Russians come over, which they did, they looted everything, are they going to loot your expensive crematorias when you can actually use those ovens? I don't know, in Dachau or Mattenhausen or somewhere where the Allies still haven't gone to. I mean, come on, you're going to make use of these things. So it's just so logical to me that when these guys come on board and they're like, oh yeah, but you know, it doesn't make sense. I'm like, it makes perfect good sense. We still have the evidence. We've got the door's on there. I don't know wherever you've got the picture on there. One of the there you go, crematoria door preserved. You can't really see in that photograph how thick it is. But the other thing is when you go to crematoria 1 and you see the door and they're like, oh well, no, clearly if you see that door, it's very flimsy. But crematoria 1 stopped functioning in 1943. It was turned into an air raid shelter, because if you look around Auschwitz and you know where to look, you will find all the air raid shelters, which are quite hidden, and they still exist. And they turned that one because that's where the Gestapo had their little headquarters. You know, the Gestapo had to be treated a lot better than everybody else. So it was used as a bunker, as an air raid shelter. So they did reinforce the walls. They closed up the gap in the ceiling. They added other doors. And then at the end of the war, when Auschwitz became a museum, they converted it back to what it was, using original material, obviously not the door, because they didn't have it. This door, for example, is from Birkenau. I'm not sure which one of the gas chambers it's from, but it's from one of the gas chambers that was found there. So you can see that this door is used for something. You don't want people to get out, okay? It's so thick and so reinforced. And obviously, we've had time and you've had to be able to preserve this. It's very difficult when it comes down to wood. We all know this, anybody who works in that field. But holy shit, how can you deny it? It's right there. It is literally right there. And all of these fictitious things coming out from people saying that it just, this is all mythology, all made up. And it just winds the hell out of me that people seem to think this didn't happen. When so many people suffered, you are literally shitting on the memory of 1 million people, and more than 1 million, 1.3 million people who suffered there, 1.3 million people who were sent there, over 1 million people who died there. I just don't understand.
I can't agree more. As we're up to 19 minutes, I want you to introduce the meme that you sent me there. That is one of the things that these idiots use to claim their nonsense about. So, we don't want to give these mouth breathers any oxygen and anything, but at the same point, you need to kind of explain to us where they've managed to get this idea from. That Auschwitz, as we can see on the meme there, had an orchestra and greenhouses and dentists and blah 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 and fake chimneys and soccer teams. Where does all this nonsense come from?
Look, I'm going to be honest with you. This, if we look at it straight up, it's real. It's true. This is all true. But not in the context that they're presenting it in at all. I'll give you a very, very, very brief, because I think this is something we need to delve into more deeper, because there is so much more to talk about with this. You can't just look at this meme and go, oh, yeah, well, there was a swimming pool. Well, there was a swimming pool for like 4 days. That actually was a reservoir. used for the fire brigade. And yes, Auschwitz had its own fire brigade, because God forbid one of the barracks gets on fire, you're going to have to find a way to put it out. You go into Birkenau and you find those reservoirs everywhere. Oddly enough, I was in walking, I think a couple of years ago, and these two kids ran past me going, look, they had an ice skating rink. And I really wanted to turn around and go, you little brats. That was, anyway, no, I didn't, but I should have. But nevertheless, it was one of the reservoirs. But this one specifically is deeper, wider. The camp commandant was a little bit loopy. He was a total weirdo, and he decided that the capo could use this for a couple of days. That's it. It's not an actual swimming pool. People didn't go in there and jump. There is also the story of the Jewish women who jumped in it and could refer to it as a swimming pool. It's not a swimming pool. It's a reservoir for water. That's simplistic. A football, soccer team. Yeah, there was. But I'm not saying that they trained every day and that is the soccer, because that's not what it is. That's not what it is. Where are the photos? There are no photographs of this. There's barely any photographs of Auschwitz in itself. There's a story of Czesław Sowol. Like I said, we can delve into this a little bit more deeper. Czesław Sowol is one of the people that have forced me to become depressed while working on this. However much I love Czesław Sowol, but he is also very interesting. He was, oddly enough, it was part of the camp orchestra, and he also played football on a Sunday. And it was very interesting how he pushed one of his friends to score against the capo. And then the next day he was called and shot at the wall of death. Mm. Take that as you may to what you think it could be. Mm.
So I mean, I took that image off the screen. I just can't bear looking at it. It just disgusts me, and it makes every bone in my body recoil with the horror that people are actually creating that stuff and sharing that stuff and spreading it around. So, you know, we will have to bring things to an end. We've kind of, you know, as you said, we can't debunk everything said by these idiots because it would take us a long time. The thing is, I think, with people who are watching this now, and you are an experienced Holocaust historian, you've worked for all sorts of foundations, you've toured Auschwitz many times, you're writing about this, you lecture about this. How should those of us who know it happened deal with people who are denying it? Do we block people? Do you engage with them? Do you humiliate them? What's your advice for dealing with these pathetic individuals?
Stop engaging with them. Number one, first of all, just don't block, report, delete, because these people, they will relentlessly continue. I've been harassed by a group of them for years now, where they will find me, they will get banned and come back on another account. It's ridiculous. Just delete, block, and you cannot engage and you cannot educate. I've tried. There are certain high-profile people that recently we've seen in the media say really stupid things. Those I will engage with, because I will invite them out here and I'll say, look, come out here. I will tour you around whatever you want.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. My feeling is always it's not the idiots themselves. It's the people who are beginning their journey to becoming a denier. In that, can you reach them before they become full-blown tinfoil hat wearer? That's where I think, is that the flat earthers out there, they can't be helped. They're idiots. But there are people who are, I don't know, walking past someone with a placard on saying the earth is flat, or in this case, the Holocaust didn't happen. It's trying to catch those people. And I think if we can expose, it's difficult because we have to, you're right. We can't give the real villainous, horrible deniers a platform, and yet we have to make sure that the people who are being hooked in by them are corrected and told where to go for the right resources. And that's where I sort of sit on the fence a bit. I don't know how to deal with that. In who should we be reaching who is still savable, if that makes sense?
Test the water. That's what I can just say. Test. If those people are willing to have a conversation with you, then that's you've probably reached your goal there. Give it a go. If it doesn't work, there's nothing you can do. Delete, block, and report.
Yeah. No, I think that's the thing. I mean, we're at the point now where we have to bring this to an end, and it's obviously, you're passionate about this. I can completely understand it why this. For people who don't know, you are Polish. Your family were involved in the uprising, in the transports, in the whole. You knew people who lived through Poland in World War II. You've met survivors. This is very, very close to your heart, and people saying, oh, well, she swears a bit. I can't believe that the greater crime is you swearing, not people denying that this stuff happened. It makes me wonder where we are. But thank you, Alina. We will talk again.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you weren't anything like as ranty as I thought you were going to be. You were like that B level ranty. I mean, I've seen you on A levels, and I think that's. I'm quite stunned by how restrained you are today.
I swore a few times.
You did.
I did promise. People were like, "Am I going to swear?" And I said, "I'll do it on purpose." So there we go.
Well, folks, I will see you all again in a minute with my other half, Mag, who's coming on to talk about French resistance. But thank you for watching us today. And whatever you can do, just make sure that you are spreading the truth out there about this. Share and watch about documentaries about the Holocaust. Recommend literature to your friends. Start with comic books, graphic novels, start with films, wherever it is. But please, let's not forget this and keep on spreading the word, because there's lots of evil in the world still that we have to address. So thank you, Alina. Thank you, viewers. See you in 5 minutes' time. Bye.